So first, there's my. You can still see it, right? It paused it on my Discord. But okay, so this is me in the fastest bio I think I've ever tried to do. I'm a founder of a new startup called MJM Growth. We actually take small tech companies and teach them how to do sales and marketing, because most tech companies suck at sales and marketing. And Rando's probably over there laughing because he's been an evangelist for I don't even know how many years. And most companies just suck at sales and marketing. They don't understand how to get the word out. So I started a company to do that. I've got some amazing people that I work with. I've also started a nonprofit, the Risk Management Information Sharing and Analysis Organization, the RM-ISAO. I'm the co-executive director. I'm one of the co-hosts of Pulse Security Weekly over on the Cyber Risk Alliance and Security Weekly family. I'm also an EINS faculty member. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm halfway decent at those couple of roles. And I have a fascinating and fun life. There's a lot of other stuff I'm not even mentioning here, I swear to God. So that's me. Anyway, what's a bill of materials? So this is interesting. What is in your software, your hardware, your firmware, your security, your compliance, whatever, doesn't matter. What's in the truck? Let's start there. What's in the truck? What do you mean? Let's assume you've got an 18-wheeler coming down the road. Okay, cool. I got an 18-wheeler. What's in it? Well, I mean, there's stuff in it. Could you be a little more clarifying here? And the idea is that every truck driver has a manifest, okay? And he hands over the manifest, and the person at the weigh station goes, okay, you've got 10,000 toilets or whatever the hell it is, 40,000 widgets, and you're a little overweight, so we're going to have to ask you to offload something. And the bill of materials, the manifest, is used to say, okay, well, I'll have another truck come and pick up 20 toilets. That'll put me underweight. Perfect. We're good. That's fine. Okay. The bill of materials is used to determine where things go, what things are on the truck, what's part of the load that you have in the truck. And the idea here is that we build software the same way. Back in the day, and I mean like literally 100, 200 years ago, when you unloaded a ship, they literally would spread a net down and you'd put boxes on the net. Then the crane operator would pick up the corners of the net, move it over to the receiving area, drop the net. They'd pick box by box by box. Longshoremen, that's what they used to be called. I think they're still called that. Dock workers would literally pick up a box at a time and go load a truck with them. Now we have containers. Okay, the containers have crap tons of stuff in it, and one crane picks up a container, drops it on a truck chassis, and the truck drives off. Okay, and we literally call it the same thing. Kubernetes and Docker, they build, what's that? Oh, containers. Because back in the day, 20, 30, 40 years ago, all code was written by hand. You know, Rando would sit at a table and a desk with a stack of punch cards in front of him, and he'd literally punch the punch cards to put the instructions into the computer. And not that he's that old. I'm not saying he's that old. He's no older than 70, okay? But the idea is that you, as a programmer, wrote every piece of your program. That's not true anymore. These days, programmers do a lot of coding. I'm not dissing or impugning programming in any way, but programming is more like Lego block building than it is like calligraphy, okay? You take, oh, I want that library. I need to encrypt, you know, some Rails stuff. Okay, well, there's a library for encrypting Rails stuff. I need to, you know, drop a form, the results of a Google form into an S3 bucket. There's probably a library for that, or a chunk of code, or Stack Overflow has some code for that, okay? But you didn't write that code. You didn't write that library. You didn't write that whatever. So the idea here is, well, where'd you get all these pieces? Where'd you get all these Lego blocks? And bills of material will tell you that. But that's software. Why do I have software, hardware, firmware, security, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we'll get into that. Now, you might know, what's the name of the company? Black Duck. They're fairly famous. They keep track of open source software. So if you have open source software in your systems, then they will keep track of it and tell you, hey, there's a new vulnerability. Hey, there's a problem. You're doing great. You're up to date. Are you using version blah, blah, blah? Yes. Okay, then you're fine. Are you using version blah, blah, blah -2? Well, yeah, that actually is critical vulnerability. Here you go. Here's your patch. Okay. So there's entire companies that are massive that are tracking chunks of software and making lots of money off you by doing it. Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, but what about the things you don't know about? Josh, what do you mean? Well, when you get a piece of software, an application, whether it's a SaaS application, a shrink wrap application, whatever, do you know what's inside of it? I promise you, it's all Lego blocked. Okay. It is not that they wrote 50 million lines of custom code. There's Lego blocks in there. There's libraries, there's DLLs, there's chunks of code from Stack Overflow and 14 other places. Do you know what's in there? Because if you don't, you've just introduced potential vulnerabilities that either you don't know about, or the manufacturer doesn't know about, or both. What do you mean that the manufacturer doesn't know about? Oh, right, because every developer logs every place that they got a chunk of code from Stack Overflow and puts it in the notes. Sure, absolutely. I mean, of course, don't yours. So you've introduced vulnerabilities or potential vulnerabilities into the application that's running God knows what in your enterprise. This is a problem. So the idea here is that if I can mandate getting from the manufacturer of every application that I use as an enterprise a software bill of materials, okay, that's the software bill of materials, then I can keep track of the vulnerabilities. Well, how do I do that? Well, I mean, there's services like Black Duck, and I think there was White Force, which was a hilarious fact that they named it that, but I'm not even going there. That will keep track of software for you. So you go, hey, I've got these 70 libraries that I use. And by the way, there's thousands of libraries that you use. If you're at a company of any size, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of libraries, modules, chunks of code, whatever, that you as a company use in the software that you buy and rent and lease and subscribe to, and in the software that you build and churn out to feed to your customers. Thousands of them, guaranteed. So if you can keep track of all of those, or a third party can keep track of them for you and keep track of the vulnerabilities affiliated with those. Because again, a vulnerability scanner is great, but if it scans my application, but the vulnerability is so far deep buried inside, maybe it's a magic parameter, maybe you get the idea. So software bills of materials actually are starting to have vulnerability bills of materials sort of plug-in, as a plug-in to them. It's really kind of cool. So that's software, and I've been harping on software, forgive me, but there's also hardware. Well, what do you mean hardware? This is really cool. I don't mean literally like computer hardware. I mean like, crap, do I have something on my table? I mean like hardware, like components, okay? And pieces of metal that you install in your house. What the hell are you talking about, Josh? We'll get into that. This is really cool. But then there's firmware. Same idea. That's kind of software of a sorts, right? Okay, IoT, firmware, the firmware on your phone, the firmware on your devices, the fact that your X-ray machine is probably running Windows 7. Don't even get me started on that. And then you've got security and compliance. What does a bill of material have to do with security and compliance? This is fun. What if I can take all of the security compensating controls, that's where compliance comes in, and I can take all the vulnerabilities, and I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a fire engine going by. If it's loud, I apologize. That's really loud. If you can take all of the compensating controls, if you can take all of the different pieces of your security and your compliance and put them in a list, and appropriately formatted, we'll get into that in a second, but you can put them in a list and you can say, here's everything I do for security. And here are the results. Here are the metrics. Here are all the pieces. Well, I get that from Splunk. I get that from my SIEM. No, you don't. You get whatever you program into your SIEM. And actually, I mean, hell, I'll invite discussion. I mean, Rando, you worked at Splunk.
Currently, unless I don't know something.
Oh, are you still there? I apologize. I didn't know that. I lost track. I apologize. I have friends working all over.
You know what? It's very easy with me, could be quite honest.
But I mean, so Splunk keeps track of a lot of your security and compliance pieces. I absolutely am on board with that. I'm not impugning Splunk or any of the SIEMs that are out there. They do great work, but they only do what you feed into them. They only track what you feed them. Okay. So if you feed them logs from only this half of your industry or this half of your enterprise, they don't track the stuff from the other side. Is basically correct?
Yes.
Okay. So With a bill of materials, you manually go out there, or with a compliance automation system, or with your SIEM, or with a lot of different things, you can collate a lot of different information about your security and compliance and have basically a list of what you do, how you do it, why you do it, what it helps, what the results are, etc. Okay, I've harped on this slide forever, and I apologize. Let me show you a few examples.
That's a nice slide, though.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well,
I've actually been trying recently. This is a little weird, but slideware. I've been trying for much simpler slides and doing more talking rather than showing, if that makes sense.
much simpler slides, and this circular graphic is anything but that.
Well, this is meant to be not something you read. I just wanted to point out that this is from the NTIA, and they're the ones that, with Alan Friedman, who's awesome dude. Alan is amazing. And he's actually moved over to CISA with Jen Easterly. He's now over there at CISA doing still software bill of materials for the US government. But this was from NTIA when he was there. And this is where the software lifecycle goes and the bill of materials assembly line. And like, it gets crazy. And I'll send this to anybody that wants to. It's in a public report of theirs. But the idea is that you can build a software bill of materials as part of your CI/CD pipeline, as part of your build process. That's the only thing I wanted that graph to be there for. Okay, just to be clear. But I mean, when I talked about hardware, there's actually a company right now who is using bill of materials, okay, to keep track of all the lighting fixtures that they put on billboards. Because, and here's the kicker, every time they get a new batch of lighting fixtures from their supplier, they get put on 50 different billboards. They get these big, huge batches of lighting stuff because they do a lot of billboards. If they get one that falls off a billboard, it could kill somebody. It could hurt a car, kill somebody, whatever. I mean, these are big freaking lighting fixtures. They're like this, like hundreds of pounds, because they're meant to last forever, basically. So they want to track. If one of them ever cracks, breaks, falls off, whatever, we want to know which batch it came from, because we're immediately going to go check every single other one in that batch. We want to know which installer installed it, because if it turns out, if it breaks off, that's one thing. But if the nuts weren't screwed down enough and the whole thing just shakes loose from the wind and everything, and it's the same installer for 20 of them, we want to go check the other 19. Okay, so they're using bill of materials as a tracking mechanism to determine where things went, if that makes sense. And it's the same idea with vegetables. You might have seen the IBM commercial. We're tracking tomatoes now through blockchain. Okay, cool. That's nice. Same idea. We want to track provenance. We want to track attribution. And we're not talking attribution dice that they always say North Korea or Iran. We want to talk about provenance of where things have come from and where they've gone and who's using them. And that's that whole library of software, lighting fixtures, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay. And then what about with pen test reports? And I blatantly stole Offensive Security's illustration of a pen test report. But with a pen test report, or with the systems that it's reporting on, can I take the artifacts from the pen test? Can I put them in as a bill of materials, as a piece of evidence about my security? Absolutely. Why not? Okay. Can I use it as a metric? Well, the pen test found 15 criticals, 70 mediums, and 4,000 informationals. We thought that was a little weird. Yeah, those are metrics. Those are artifacts. Those are things we can measure. So they should be in a bill of materials. Why? Well, if a customer goes, hey, I want to see your security bill of materials, here. And I've actually weighed, and I would love feedback, by the way, I've weighed calling them either compliance bill of materials, CBOMs, or risk bill of materials, because I can separate that out into security and compliance. So RBOMs. And
I think I like CBOMs better.
Do you really?
Because RBOM doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, because C and the S, and this is just an alliteration thing for me. It's just me. CBOMs, like it begins and ends with the same S.
Interesting. Sort of the same sound thing.
And
I like that.
RBOMs it just doesn't have the same ring to it. So I'm going to lean heavily towards CBOMs. Thank you.
No, I like it. And I it's cool. And I'm asking for feedback, by the way. I'd love feedback from people. At the end of this, I think I've got an email address on the last slide. Please email me or join us here in the classroom, and we're happy to have you here to talk about it. All right. So let's talk about how people do these things. So right now, there's a few different methods for SBOMs. Those are the first three, and it's SPDX, SWID tags, and Cyclone DX. Let me explain the differences real quick. I'm not going to go horribly deep, but I want to explain just a few differences. I'll actually start in the middle there. SWID tags are very, very simple. They're literally tags that you tag a piece of software. Think of it like an RFID tag. It's not physical, but boom, done. I've tagged it. What is it? Oh, that's SAS. It's just pieces of information you tag software with to make it easy to classify or differentiate. That's it. Okay. But that's what they were designed for. And that's fine. They do a great job. They're nice people, actually. CycloneDX is a way to try to take other SBOMs and enrich it. Unfortunately, recently they've started doing some things that, as I understand it, are a little not playing well with others. We'll leave it at that. I am involved personally with the SPDX project, and the SPDX project is open source. It's part of the Linux Foundation, and it has a full ISO standard for the SPDX protocol. SPDX was Software Packet Data Exchange. It was originally designed as just a license bomb. So I could tell of all the pieces in this piece of software and all 14 licenses that are in the 14 libraries, I can keep track of them all. Because again, that's another thing. What if I take a piece of software and embed it in something I build for commercial use? Oops, it's got a GPL license or an MIT license or whatever. We've just done very bad things to our legal team, and they hate us now. And legal teams that hate you, bad. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to keep track of all these licenses. That's actually what this was originally intended to do, just for licenses. Okay? That's where the software bill of materials started, was just licenses. Everybody's like, and if you're on a startup, you've seen this. Like, okay, I need a library to do this. Here you go. And then 5 minutes later, oh, can I use that license? Well, let's talk about licenses. And because your legal team for your startup is A, that guy you met over dinner the other night, and B, they're really expensive. Okay. So if we can keep track of the licenses, it's incredibly helpful. Now, SPDX is 2.4 right now. And I'm probably saying that wrong, but they're moving to version 3, and version 3 has plugin capabilities. So it's going to be not just what the software is, not just the license for the software, but there's also going to be things like the vulnerabilities affiliated with that software, associated with that piece of software, that library, that whatever. It's going to be compliance. We're actually, the working group that I'm starting is actually working with SPDX 3.0 project to build out a bill of materials for compliance for CBOMs. And it's fascinating that is the case. So SPDX is an ISO standard. It's a Linux Foundation project. There's hundreds of people working on it, and it's effectively a system of tuples. So if you're familiar with data name value pairs, that's all it really is. And I'll show you how they work in a minute. There's also some companies that are working on it. DBOM is the distributed bill of materials. That's a Unisys product. And if you know Chris Blask, he was heavily affiliated with that. He left Unisys a little while ago, a few months ago, I think. But DBOM is a blockchain-based system where they have their own little sort of mini internet. And you can transfer SBOMs back and forth securely across the DBOM network. Kind of cool. Secure, who is one of the sponsors of BSides Delaware 2021, is building out a system to do federated trust, where you can allow people access to information while still controlling it. And so that's kind of the idea of transferring SBOMs back and forth. So Secure is helping with that as well. And then there's Binary Beacon. I won't talk about that right now. That's actually a company that's in stealth that I'm involved with. All right. So this, by the way, and there's Cybeats, which Chris Blask is now at. They can actually, I just found out about them. You can actually, this is really cool. If a company gives you an SBOM for their software, how do you know it's right? Like, how do you know it's right? What if they're like, oh, no, we use OpenSSL. Isn't Heartbleed there? I'm making it, like it's fixed now, but we use the vulnerable version of OpenSSL and we can't update. That should not be on our SBOM. Cybeats actually generates SBOMs off of the binaries. So you can check the one they give you and the one that Cybeats gives you and go, yeah, no, it's not cool. Let's sit down and talk. Okay. It's fascinating stuff. Like, this is a whole universe of information that's opening up, but we'll get to that. Let me go into a little bit more about what they are. By the way, there's the SPDX ISO standard. It's 5962/2021. If you want some examples, there's a GitHub link. And this, I just wanted to show the name value pairs. Okay. This is a very simple, stupid SPDX document. It basically comes across as documents, JSON documents. You can even do it in text, as I have it here. It's just a name value pair. Which version? 2.1. Data license, CCO. Package name, foo. Okay, the other one would be bar, of course. Package originator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this came out of his GitHub. the SPDX tutorial right there. Most of these SBOMs and bombs in general are name value pairs. Oh, so I can transfer them using JSON. Easy. API, no problem. Any kind of document management system, absolutely. How secure does it have to be? Ooh, we'll talk about that in a second. But realistically, and by the way, all of the different standards are very similar. I know SPDX, I work with it. I'm a member of the project, but so this is what I used, but they're all very similar. Name value pairs, tuples is what they're called. It's easy. I mean, if you know JSON, like, duh, okay? And it makes it so simple to work with. We have a set of fields and we have values. Now there are or and ands and some Boolean operators and things like that, because there are things, you can have a piece of software that you might be under 2 or 3 different licenses. So maybe there's some ors in there for a particular piece of software. You might be under any of these licenses. We don't know unless we manually select. So there is some things that are not just a straight up tuple, okay, just to be clear, but it's straight up Boolean operators. It's not that strange, if that makes sense. You can script things about this quite easily, and building on modules and plugins to extract or enrich information from these, well, that shouldn't be a problem. It's really designed to be very simple to work with. SPDX has spent a lot of time. I will tell you that the tech mailing list for SPDX, wow, we talk edge cases so much, it's not even funny. And the reason is we want to make sure that we're as flexible as possible while still remaining very powerful, okay? And that it's easy to work with. I can't tell you the amount of discussions that go across that mailing list that are mind-bogglingly nitpicky to make sure that we've ironed out all the wrinkles. It's not all nitpicking. I mean, there's lovely people, but anyway. So, like, okay, Josh, you've explained SBOMs, you've explained bills of materials, you've explained how they work and what they do and why people use them. Why do I care as a pick your InfoSec topic? All right, let's talk about red teams. If you have an SBOM from a company, you have every library, you have every vulnerability, you have literally entire 100% coverage, passive recon. That's it, done, next. You now know exactly which vulnerabilities to give it a shot with, because you know everything they're using in this piece of software or this software library that they have. Okay, libraries of software, I should say. You can do full passive recon. By the way, this is why we control SBOMs pretty carefully, okay? If you have a compliance bill of materials, a CBOM, we're just gonna change that. You've got all their compensating controls laid out. You've got every measurement, every metric. You've got all their security controls, their compliance controls. You got it all, man. If you can't be a red teamer when somebody hands you their freaking playbook, you got problems, okay? And conversely, if you as a blue teamer look at that and go, I could break it in 10 minutes. We got things to work on now, don't we? Okay? So for a red teamer, this is an incredible reconnaissance opportunity. This is an incredible piece or set of information that you can use to really, really, really do recon that's just clean. I mean, clean recon. They don't even know you're looking at their stuff because you're not even looking at their stuff. You're looking at the documents about their stuff. Okay? This is a way to understand, not just probe. Oh, look, it got through. Oh, crap, we got blocked. All right, probe. Oh, that one got through. To line up all the holes in the Swiss cheese, to chain exploits together, this is your best friend. Okay? Oh, that means we should never do SBOMs because they're dangerous. No. That would say something like we should never use a lock because people can pick them. You know, it's like, no, this is an incredibly useful thing. Let's go a little farther. A blue teamer cares about this because we've got a centralized location for listing all of the potential vulns. And no, it's not, I can run Nessus and get the same thing. No, you can't. Because Nessus scans programs, but it doesn't know every library that's inside of them. It knows what vulnerabilities have been found. It doesn't know what vulnerabilities are sitting, waiting like a snake coiled up in a package. That's a horrible vision. Where did that come from? Dear God. It's hanging out with you, Randa.
It probably came from that stupid bagel you posted earlier.
That's true.
We'll show that. That's a very inside back office joke, but we'll talk about that. I have a question right now. Do you want to field it right now?
Yeah, go for it, man. What's up?
So you had just mentioned, which occurred to me briefly, about it being weaponized and things like that. Could an SBOM or something like this also be used? So we had a great tabletop thing earlier from Kelly at
Leviathan.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think of her at. It was at Gwydia.
Gwydia.
Yeah, Gwydia. Lawyer, right? In the law. Could you then use this in a legal sense if you say provide us with an SBOM and they say here you go, but like you mentioned earlier, they intentionally left something out that they knew was in there. Something gets popped down the line, and you say, "Listen, you SOBs, you gave us this SBOM, but you intentionally left it out."
Oh, totally. And here's the thing: it is making companies responsible, and what's the word? You're holding them
Accountable.
Accountable. Thank you. They're accountable to what. Thank you so much. They're accountable to what they're saying. You're not. They can't just go, "Oh, it's secure." Try again. There's nothing that is secure. Okay, there's nothing that is 100% secure. And if anybody tells you there's something that's 100% secure, ask them how. If they go, well, it's turned off, crushed, melted, hit with a blowtorch, and then at the bottom of a mine shaft, all right, we're good. Other than that, throw them out of your damn office. Okay, because that's the truth. But if somebody tells me, here's all, I can now give you a picture of your attack surface. I can work with information. I can't work when you're just giving me vague assurances that have nothing behind them. Okay. Right. And so if you go, hey, I need the SBOM for the software you're selling us. And by the way, as per an executive order from May of this year, every piece of software that the federal government buys must have an SBOM affiliated with it. That's a lot of software, everybody. Because if you look at a GSA schedule, that's the schedule of everything that is offered to the government. It's like 4 million pages long. Okay. So basically every piece of software out there, pretty close, now has SBOMs or will have SBOMs in the next, say, year. Okay. Which means that as buyers, we can request those SBOMs. When those SBOMs are given to us, if those SBOMs are accurate, correct, up to date, proper, and it shows that the software and the chunks of software in the libraries are up to date, proper, etc., patched, blah, blah, blah. Hey, that just increased my confidence in the manufacturer and the company, didn't it? If it shows that there's problems, we need to talk. And if, God forbid, something happens and that SBOM was a lie, like you said, liability just came off me. It's not my fault anymore. It's their fault. They lied. So the manufacturers of software that provide inaccurate SBOMs, yeah, your cyber insurance has got to be very, very high. Because remember, you didn't manufacture it for me. You manufactured it for your 1,000 clients, 10,000 clients, 100,000 clients. And as soon as my SBOM is wrong and I got popped from it, do you know what that's called? That's called a supply chain attack, children. Can you say supply chain attack? I knew you could. Because as soon as I get popped, your 9,999 other clients are going to get popped about 3 minutes later. And then your company is going out of business. So, but if you provide proper SBOMs, even if they get popped, you have some defensibility. You were open and honest about the attack surface. Okay? As well, think of it this way. If you provide a proper SBOM, your 9,000, 10,000 clients, whatever it is, somebody's going to go, hey, I think there's a problem here. Or they're going to have a pen test with a proper pen test company who's going to say, there's a problem here. The SBOM shows it. We were able to exploit it. Here's how. Guess what? You're going to be able to patch it and then issue an updated SBOM, and life is good. Use your customer base to actually improve your software. I know, crazy thought, right? Okay. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do that. So I hope that answered your question. I hope I didn't go too far. I tend to rant about that.
No. And the fact that you were able to put that very positive spin on it at the end is one of the reasons I love hearing you talk. I'm like, wouldn't that be nice? Somebody using all of these things for a good purpose and working together and full disclosure and all of this. And I was like, that would be nice.
And you know what? In a proper environment where we weren't hiding everything for fear of somebody finding out, that's what would happen. And it's interesting, and I know I'm going a little off topic, forgive me, but the open source model is, here's my code. If you find something that's screwed up, let me know or fix it yourself. And if you fix it and do a good job, I'll merge it in and list you as a contributor. Okay? And life is good. And yes, there are problems. OpenSSL Heartbleed, I know, and there's ridiculous amounts of problems. And if Zero, if you're listening, Pen 2 has problems all the time. No, I'm just kidding. But no, but the point is, if you find a problem, the people that are responsible fix the damn problems. And that's one of the reasons I love the open source community. They know there's problems. They're not going, oh, we're perfect. They're like, oh, if you spot something, let me know. I'm not perfect. I may not have seen everything. That's the attitude I wish more software manufacturers had. Okay. And look, let's be honest. How many commercial products out there have open source code badly hidden at its core? Okay. Oh, let's take this open source code and put a wrapper on it and sell it for $14 gazillion. That's not cool, dude. I mean, it's fine, but as long as you contribute back, as long as you are part of the community. And this will force people to be parts of the community that they're taking from. I like that as well. This provides, if done properly, this model, this idea, this SBOM and bill of materials provides the incentive to actually become an actual community with closed source and open source and to help each other out. I love that. I'm a big fan of community. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, like I said, the federal government, if they get a bad SBOM, I think they're going to come down. Well, the False Claims Act, I think it is, would cover them there. And they would take that company and, well, they take them out behind the woodshed and beat them. Okay. That would be not cool. All right, that would be Old Yeller moment or whatever, because you just don't do that. That's not cool. All right. So blue team. So red team loves passive recon. I mean, come on, what red teamer doesn't love? Here's information about your target, and you don't even have to send a packet their way. But for blue team, asset management for software. Oh my God, I actually know all the software packages we run and all of the sub packages and libraries and chunks of code. I can has list. Okay. You now have a list of everything you're running. All right. So, and versions and everything else. All right, great. Oh, wow, that's way out of date. Well, we don't maintain that. That's part of a package, an application that we get from vendor Y. All right, Jimmy, call vendor Y. Tell them update it or it's coming off our network or we're going to segment it off into something. Well, no, it needs 15 different connections. Then they better get their ass in gear and patch it, shouldn't they? Not my problem. It gives you ammunition as a defender to say that piece of software is outdated. It doesn't meet our standards. Compliance is like, lock it off. It doesn't meet our standards, segment it. It goes in the same network segment that the WinXP computers are still in. Okay, because you've got 3 of those. No, really, you do. You didn't know that? Yeah, they're down in the basement, the janitors and some of the, the badging systems use those, the security and facilities people. I'm joking. Please don't have Windows XP. It's not cool, but segment them off if you have them. And all of the metrics for security and compliance are in one place. Why? Well, if you have a CBOM, a compliance bill of materials, you not only have the controls, you have the results, you have the artifacts. So I can look up my pen test from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and I can see if we're getting better, or I can see if we're getting worse. I don't have to manually compare them. It's all done as part of the bills of materials and the system that they're held in. Oh, that's kind of cool. Isn't that nice? I can tell what's happening. And for executives and managers, for the procurement management, for the compliance and security, you get centralized locations to see your assets. Procurement loves that. Oh, we've already bought that. We already bought this? Yeah, it was for this other division. Oh, hey, if we expand the license, it's half the cost of buying a new license. We don't care. That sounds good to us. Okay, great. Procurement loves this idea. Compliance and security see all the scores, all the artifacts, all the metrics, all the everything in one place. How do we need to spend our budget? Well, look, we've got this a cluster of vulnerabilities. Is there a name for a group of vulnerabilities? Like a murder of crows or a gaggle of hackers? We need to come up with a name for that. Sorry, I just thought of that. Anyway, we all of a sudden have this cluster of vulnerabilities for the last 6 months. And it's all roughly the same thing. It's all about these 2 applications that we use for manufacturing. Well, guess what? We best spend our budget in segmenting off our factory floor. We best spend our budget in pressuring the manufacturer to update them. We best spend our budget. Like, it helps you understand where to spend your budget. This is incredibly useful. Well, I'm a hacker. I don't care about that. Yes, you do. If you don't care about where the budget is spent, you're not hacking. Well, what do you mean? No, seriously. If you don't care about where the budget is spent, you're not hacking, because part of that budget is your salary. So you may be a hacker, but you're not getting paid to hack by that company if the budget goes the wrong way. Let's be clear. And if you want to pay your mortgage, you probably should care. Well, yeah, but I mean, I get paid no matter what. Not if the budget goes to all automated tools. So this is actually relevant. And if you're a blue teamer, well, yeah, but I mean, I use what they give me. Yeah, but don't you want influence on what they give you? Don't you want to tell them, hey, the tools that we need are these class of tools. I don't care which kind, I don't care which one you get. I would recommend these or these or these. But the classes of tools that we need, these are the class of tools that we need to do our job better. Prove it. What do you mean prove it? Show me. I'm trying to give people the tools that they need to justify the budget to do their job. That's what this is all about. Okay. Now, we talked about protecting them, the bills of materials. Should you? Yeah, hell yeah. Your red team report, your pen test report, do you just give that out in the corner? No. I mean, I know Rando does, but most people don't. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
I open up my trench coat and say, look what I got.
It's not free candy van. It's the free pen test report van, kids. Okay. So
pen is mightier.
So you give them out, but you give them out with an NDA. Part of your customer agreement, here's an NDA or some protective language, let your legal deal with that. But you've signed it, great. Here's your bomb. Okay, you don't just hand them out or have them automatically available on the website. You just literally hand them out as you would a SOC 2 or a red team report with an NDA under proper protective legal measures. Okay. How else can they be secured? Well, I mentioned DBOM. Unisys is working on this system to do it under blockchain, so is Secure. Secure talked yesterday. You can encrypt it. Okay, encrypt it, because encryption is perfect until the quantum encryption wavicles of doom show up. Okay, that was a joke. Relax.
Actually, did you just use a word called wavicles?
Yeah, that's an actual word, I believe.
Is it?
Why?
Okay.
There's particles, there's waves, and then somebody came up with wavicle a while back.
It sounded like you made it up. I'm wondering.
I honestly could have. I thought I read it somewhere, but I was doing this presentation about 2 hours ago, so I could have totally made it up. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't really give myself time to write this. Anyway, but you can encrypt it. You can lock it down in a blockchain. You have legal cover, NDA, that legal paperwork, that kind of thing. But you have to secure the bombs. You just don't hand them out, just to be clear. So as a red teamer, how do you get them? Well, normally as a red teamer, you go, look, assume that there's insider threat. Give me a bomb. Okay. As a blue teamer, you should have access to every bomb from every manufacturer you get software from. And I don't care whether it's SaaS, whether it's PaaS, IaaS. I don't care. I don't care if it's shrink wrap. I don't give a crap. Whatever you're using, because even in a people like, well, PaaS and IaaS, you're not actually getting software. You're installing your own stuff in the infrastructure that they give you. You're right. Except that how about the audit and control and management plane and everything else? I want bombs on every piece of software my company interacts with. Period. End of story. Next. Okay. So, we've got somebody joining us. If you have any questions, just unmute and pipe up. Totally cool. So how do I get that? Well, as a blue teamer, I should be going, hey, compliance, procurement especially, do me a favor. I want bombs from everybody we talk to. For every piece of hardware we get or install, like those lighting fixtures, for every piece of software we buy, for all of our compliance, we should be generating CBOMs, all that kind of, all security, same thing, okay? And we should be locking them down. They're not right on the public website. Okay. How is this going to happen? How is this actually going to spread? Well, I mentioned the executive order. Okay, that was back in May, if I remember correctly. Every single piece of software, that was the same one as, if you remember the one that everybody got all freaked out about, Zero Trust, that's that same executive order, okay? And every piece of software that goes to the federal government is going to have an SBOM. I think it's within the next year. I'd have to check with Alan Friedman over at CISA to check. But if you've got a piece of software that the federal government also buys, which is most of them, just ask for the bomb. If they refuse to give it to you, go, wait, why? What do you mean, why? Why are you not giving it to me? Okay, so you as buyers putting pressure on manufacturers is definitely going to be a piece of how this happens. But along the way, the Linux Foundation, which runs the SPDX project, MITRE, which is building a supply chain security initiative and is on the SPDX project. Dr. Bob Martin is an awesome, awesome, awesome dude. I can't tell you how awesome he is. He's so freaking smart. Like I love hanging out with him because I learn every time I talk to that dude. The SPDX project, the SPDX official podcast, which is something that I'm doing, and we're putting episodes in the can now. We'll be starting to put them out in another couple of weeks. Risk Aversity, which is the podcast of the RM-ISAO. It's the nonprofit I started. We're also putting those in the can, and we're going to be putting those out in the next few weeks because you want to give a backlog, because otherwise having a buffer is great, because otherwise you can't do this thing called take a vacation. Right, Danny? And
I'm sorry, I don't understand that word.
What is that word? Time.
Is that Dutch? What is that? I don't understand that.
Don't even get me started. But there's a lot of groups and companies, and there's an unnamed, I actually named them earlier, Binary Beacon, but that's still in stealth mode. There's other companies. Secure is helping with some of the bomb stuff. There's a lot of groups and nonprofits and organizations out there helping and going and working very hard to make it happen for various reasons. The ISAO is working to make bombs happen because we think being able to sort of collect your compliance information in one spot is going to be great for the SMB market. Why? Because the SMB market subcontracts to larger companies. And if you can just go, I've already collected that. Thunk. I don't need to fill out your damned questionnaire. Because how many SMBs have time, manpower, person power, to fill out all the questionnaires? Oh my God, they're a nightmare. 400 questions later, you're like, great. Well, now you can join our Prime Association. Here's the questionnaire for that. Kill me now, okay? So if I have CBOMs, compliance bombs, I'm done. Next, I'm not filling out your questionnaire. Here's all the information you could possibly need. Have a nice day, okay? So the RM-ISAO, my nonprofit, is designed to help small and medium businesses become and successfully stay federal contractors and contractors to other larger businesses. So that's why we're involved with this. And all the rest of them, I think I've gone over those. And then, of course, there's the wonderful thing of how can you help? Join up, help, volunteer. Where? Well, there's the SPDX project. They're always looking for people to really explore the edge cases of software. And we're going to be starting a working group there for CBOMs. Because Anranda, actually, you convinced me. CBOM is better. But we're going to be starting a working group there to work with CBOMs and building out the structure and all the fields, because we need all the fields for a CBOM. I mentioned the name value pairs. Well, those field names, we need to come up with an entire set of those for compliance, an entire set of them for security, and a complete set. How would you build a complete set of fields for security? I'm really curious because I'm starting to do it. I'd love your help. Okay. So tell me what interests you, and I'll tell you where to go to help. Honest, not a problem. Happy to give you that information. And if you want to do that, just yell. There's my Twitter handle, and there's an email address that reaches me. And I guess we'll stop here and go questions.
Hold on, I gotta change one thing real quick. So while I went, I didn't see any questions right now, but I did take it upon myself to go on Twitter, and you had asked, do we have a name for a group of vulnerabilities? And I have answers for you.
Oh, really? Oh my God, seriously? Go for it. Come on.
I do. Hold on. Let's go. Oh wow, there's some really good
That
ones.
was literally on the spur of the moment. I had no, we don't have a name for that, do we?
So, we have from Viking Sec a dumpster fire of vulnerabilities. We have the obvious ones. Okay, like we do have the obvious ones. Greg Young says, I believe the collective noun is a shit show of vulnerabilities. Safe Sex says, can we call it a fleet? I say fleet. A fleet of vulnerabilities. I don't know. A skid.
Well, because that's a fleet enema. That's what they're talking about.
A skid, as in a skid of 0 days. I
like that.
The collective noun for vulns is a quilt or patchwork.
Ooh, that's actually really good.
I like this one from a Adam Orton, an opportunity.
Manchester says opportunity.
A brace, I guess, as embrace yourself.
Yeah. Well, no, it's an old word for two. I shot 2 rabbits. You shot a brace of rabbits.
Oh, okay.
That's literally what that means. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think this one might win from Barry Dorans, who's always funny. What would we call a group of vulnerabilities? An NSO group.
Ooh,
Right?
yeah, but that's very timely, and therefore it'll age. Whereas,
Well, not if you make it a thing. It'll never age out if you institute it. So I think we should push towards
an
that.
NSO of vulnerabilities.
And of course, the go to a cluster F is something that somebody else said. I like an opportunity and a NSO group is what
I have to admit, a dumpster fire of vulnerabilities is actually not bad.
But we use dumpster fire for everything, though.
I know.
That's the only reason I would be like, yeah, because it's so overused. But let me check in the chat.
Opportunity of vulns. That is good. I do like that. Yeah.
An opportunity of vulns. Xenophage, I don't know who the hell that is, said a group of vulnerabilities. Isn't that an oh shit moment? As in all one word. Oh shit moment.
An OSM of vulns.
An OSM of vulns. I
still like opportunity.
I'm really leaning towards opportunity.
I think we'll have to put that out there on Twitter as a poll. You know, like pick 2 or 3 of them and then put it out there as a poll. You should do that.
There we go.
That's
okay.
all you do.
I will do that. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of other questions. We did have somebody join us and they left. Somebody joined us in the chat. Although I do really like this version of giving virtual talks, of put it in like a classroom situation so we can have easy.
I would enjoy this much more than just the
Trevor Bryant says Adobe. Can we call it? Can we call
a flash of vulns?
A flash of vulnerability. Oh, okay. That's definitely going to be in the poll later.
Dude.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep running that. Like I said, I don't have any other questions, but as always, besides Quadling, of course, being one of the organizers, he knows these rules. He's going to be wandering around in the Q&A channel later if you have any questions for him. And again, give us all your ideas of what we call a group of vulnerabilities. Next up, who do we have next? Next up, we have, I gotta look at my list. I'm not usually talking right now. A software security engineering, learning from the past to fix the future. That is up next at 3 p.m. And Quadling, thank you, sir.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope this was useful and at the very least interesting to people. I really think this is the future in a lot of ways. And I think it's going to change how we see reconnaissance to a certain extent and how we deal with manufacturers of software. And I think that's and vendors of compliance and security tools. They better be able to provide me with the chunk of CBOM that I need from them for my usage. And I think that's going to provide a lot more power back to the customers.